What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, just wanted to make a video about this because it's a big talk amongst Colts Nation right now. And I think it's fair to have a discussion about it. Whether or not I have an opinion that you guys agree with or not doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what's important is to talk about some of the things that Colts Nation wants to know about. So here's the thing. So obviously this season is quickly going in the wrong direction for the Indianapolis Colts. And even though a lot of us, including us on this channel, have even said that, like, listen, we expected this. We expected there to be bumps along the road. I think the only problem we had is after week 3 and week 4, or week 5 even, like, you saw some things in the tweaking of the Indianapolis Colts that made you think, maybe this team has a little more life to it than what we actually thought. Like, this team, with the way it's playing, with the defense having, playing decently well, and the offense being much better this year than it has been in the last 2 years. And when you talk about, like, the coaching staff and everything else that's going on, like, there was a lot of optimism, especially after the Colts beat the Ravens, that everyone was like, there might be something good to tap into here. And that was why I think a lot of us now are a little more upset at the fact that it's not, I think I can speak for most fans and say that it's not the coaching staff that we're upset with. We're more upset with the idea that this season could have transpired in a different way than what previously some of us thought, had it not been for the injuries that we had to deal with. And then when it comes to, Anthony Richardson stuff and, how this team was performing, we thought that there wasn't any kind of hope for this season to go forward, at least not yet. But then we saw how the AFC's been turning out. Nobody's really separating themselves in the AFC. And you saw what we were looking at. We thought, maybe there's a little more to it than what we previously thought, but that just didn't work out. So now we're trying to figure out why that is. And ultimately, I think the majority of it just has to deal with injuries. When you lose Anthony Richardson the way that you did, and he was clearly ahead of every projection that most people had for him early on in the year. So I think everyone can agree on that. And then when it comes to just the injuries to the cornerback room and some of the occasional injuries in other spots, like, it has drastically put this team behind. And no matter what we try to do, we're just not fixing it right now. So there's a couple different reasons for that. And we can kind of talk about two of the men that are responsible for some of the biggest reasons why the Indianapolis Colts are the way they are right now. And that mainly has to do with Gus Ballard and Gus Bradley. Particularly, if we want to talk first things first about Gus Bradley, I think that's the big one. And I think I said right after the game that there's just no way Gus Bradley can be the DC going forward. And I know that Shane Steichen had said in his media availability the day after, or even the day of the stuff going on, because he was asked about it, how the defense is underperforming and whatnot, that he had a lot of faith in Gus Bradley, and he kept him around because he had a lot of faith in Gus Bradley. I would like to believe that, but at the same time, I also sit back and I say to myself that, listen, guys, coaches say that stuff all the time. Coaches say that, especially when you're in the middle of the season and you're not going to make that change right now because there's no one available to make it better. There's just nothing that you can really go with to say that, he shouldn't say that right now. I mean, what else is he supposed to say? I mean, he's not going to go out there and say, oh, man, like, Gus Bradley sucks and the defense should have done better and all this stuff. Like, he knows what's going on, and he's propping his guys up. He's not bringing them down while the entire organization is down already. They're not going to do that. He's going to be smart about what he does. And then ultimately in the offseason, we will see what this team is going to do. And I am positive, or I'm trending in that direction, that Gus Bradley is just not the right fit for what Shane Steichen wants to do. I think Shane Steichen wants to go out there and get somebody that's more aggressive in how they approach this defense, because the cover 3 zone scheme defense that they run now, it doesn't work for a lot of different reasons, and we keep talking about it. And then of course we saw in the game on Sunday with the Saints, we saw that we've seen it plenty of times over the last several years that Gus Bradley, when it comes to cornerbacks, is unwilling to change. When it comes to guys are struggling and you need to try something different, he is unwilling to change. He's unwilling to accept that there might be a different option. I get it. There's not as many options to do that. This isn't high school football. I totally get it. But when you're in a situation like we are now, where it's trial and error, try to figure out what's best and what's not, and you got a guy that's clearly being a detriment to the team on the field, and you don't do something to change that, then that makes me angry. And again, I am not willing to say that Gus Bradley is all at fault for the defensive struggles this year. This team has not been as great at tackling collectively as a unit. We've lost Grover Stewart for multiple weeks, and teams are running the football better against us because of it. And of course, our secondary at the corner room has just been decimated. So, and the linebacker group hasn't been great either. You lost Zaire Franklin for a part of that game on Sunday. You've had your issues with Shaq Leonard. So I think, again, just like everything else, especially with Chris Ballard, you have to be willing to accept the fact that, yes, there's an issue with all the injuries that's going on. But I think at the same time, Gus Bradley needs to be held accountable for lack of change and the lack to make adaptations to a defense that clearly isn't getting the job done right now. And then, of course, when it comes to Chris Ballard, I'm going to just say it right here, folks, for the Fire Chris Ballard crowd. Again, he's not going anywhere after this year, guys. Don't think he is. Because the difference is with Chris Ballard is we're predicating his job security on whether or not Anthony Richardson pans out. Ultimately, if Anthony Richardson pans out, then majority of the way we're going to forgive Chris Ballard and see what he can build around them, right? And I mean, that's the thing, is we have to see how this team does after the fact. But the only thing that does concern me, or at least give me the idea that Ballard may not be the answer long-term, because we've been having this discussion now for like years. I mean, literally, I think we've been having this discussion since at least 2021 at this point. I mean, we've been saying it over and over and over again. Ballard has just continuously failed to make this team better in the big value money positions. That's the biggest problem we have. He right now has a great coach. I have high praise and confidence in the hire of Shane Steichen. Fully guaranteed that this guy's going to help us. Now, the ultimate thing is when it comes to the players, we all seen it. He's invested a lot of money in the trenches and not as much money everywhere else. Or even in linebackers' sake, he has, especially with Shaq Leonard. But we're just now getting the quarterback of the future after a long 4 years of trying to find out who that's going to be, right? And there's no guarantee that Anthony Richardson is going to be the next big thing for Indy. And, we haven't gotten a true number one wide receiver. Our best number one wide receiver right now is our slot wide receiver in Josh Downs. To the credit of Michael Pittman, I think Michael Pittman has been done a disservice by previous coaching staffs and the quarterback situations that he's had to deal with. I think that that's a big part in it. I think that's a big part in it. So I'm not willing to write off on Michael Pittman yet, but it is a big concern. Otherwise, you don't have a lot of great wide receiver help right now. And then, of course, we've seen Ballard incapable of drafting a defensive end. He has failed time and time again so far at getting any defensive end that has shown any kind of ability to be dominant in the NFL, at least to the elite level that we need. The best person on our defensive line is DeForest Buckner, and he has been great. That was a great trade by Indianapolis to get DeForest Buckner, but he is the only one on that defensive line that is consistently getting any kind of help on the pass rush. And outside of that, Yannick Ngakoue did good, but it wasn't elite and it wasn't enough. It just didn't help in the long run. And of course, Kwity Paye's not worked out yet. Dio Dangbo hasn't been a shot yet. Samson Ebukam has struggled as of recently, and I could continue down the list, right? And then, of course, when it comes to the cornerbacks, I think Cody had brought up a good point. I'm not mad at how the Colts addressed the cornerback room when they found out about. I mean, obviously, he drafted 3 corners in this draft to try to get young depth in here, but it's the reaction after the fact that Ballard has once again not done anything to affect the roster before the trade deadline. It hasn't done anything. And I get it that this season it's a wash. Nothing matters about this season. We know the Colts could win their last 7 games of the year. And at the end of the day, even if they make the playoffs, we know this team is not going to do it. We know. It's just a matter of, again, just wishing that something was different. Like I'm sure that Ballard and crew had a few people they wanted to look at in the corner room, and there's not a ton of them, but there is a few guys that right now, while your secondary is completely decimated by injury and guys may be missing for some time, and your defense is clearly missing some kind of presence in the cornerback room, you're just not – it just seems like it's a lack of prowess to just make something to try to help this team out. But at the end of the day, I don't expect anything to happen with Ballard because, we knew what this season was going to be, and there's still – this team is the youngest it's ever been, which is crazy to think about because of how many people that we're going to have to potentially re-sign or let go after this year when free agency hits. That's going to be interesting. We're going to see what Ballard's capable of. And I'm hoping that, knowing we might have the franchise guy here at quarterback, you have the offensive line to make it work. You have the coach to be able to take you to the next level. Do you start making the big decisions? Do you start throwing all the punches out and just go after it? I feel like you have to at some point, or else this isn't going to work out. So that's my take on it, guys. Happy to agree or disagree with me. That's fine. Just want to, kind of explain my position about some of these guys. And, again, we'll continue to monitor this as time goes along. I could be completely wrong on both of these. So we'll see how it goes. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, go Colts.